Hey guys, Level Cap here, and welcome to Devlog number 40 for C-Beams, a spaceship game that I'm building with my buddy Rich and a small development team. We have made a ton of progress over the past 3 weeks, not without its slowdowns. Things have been interesting around GDC, but we've got stuff like DLSS Frame Gen in the game, which I'm like, don't rely on Frame Gen, but seeing it run your game at over 400 FPS is exciting. I've got a new triangle spaceship to show off if you're tired of some of the more boxy looking ships. I did a full deep dive and sound overhaul for the entire game in terms of orchestrating how it's built and engineered behind the scenes. It's pretty cool and complicated. And we have a sneak peek at something that I'm really excited to show off that Mr. Meteor has been working on. This is the beginning of our mining user interface. This is a gameplay system that I've had concepted for a long time, and hopefully we'll be able to test it out in game soon. Now, before I show off the details, I've got a little bit of shopkeeping to go over. For people who've been following the channel a little more closely, you might have heard that I had my Discord account hacked. The hacker deleted our entire C-Beams server, which had over 1,400 members and was a super cool community. There's no way for us to get that server back. Discord does not have the system set up, or they won't allow people to do it. Whatever it is, we can't get it back. So we've had to rebuild the server from the ground up. There's a link for that in the video description. And of course, if you're interested in the game, you can also wishlist it on Steam. So both of those links are in the description. Now let's check out just how far we can push the frame rate in our game using DLSS, because I don't know, it's cool. So I should clarify that despite having DLSS in our settings here, the upscaling part of it doesn't actually work. There's a couple of bugs, and so it's using TAA, I think, for anti-aliasing, but Frame Gen works. And so turning that on like massively increases our FPS, even though we have a huge amount of optimization stuff we still have to fix with the game. Jumping into space here and turning on the frame rate tracker, I'm getting easily over 300 FPS in game, and a lot of that is slower because the UI is really poorly optimized right now, and it's costing us a lot. In fact, we fixed some of that in a more updated version of the game, which we haven't built and pushed out to Steam yet, but you can see when the UI goes off in a jump sequence here, the frame rate bumps up to almost 500 FPS, which is awesome. I think we actually have some room to grow there. Obviously, we're not relying on DLSS Frame Gen to get a good stable frame rate in the game, just to make that clear. I'm just a bit giddy being able to turn it on and get it working in our game and just see that frame rate boost through the roof. We got a lot to do on the low end side of things, and luckily having a Steam Deck as sort of our benchmark for a lot of stuff is going to force us to really make sure the game is well optimized on low end systems. Next up, I'm excited to show off a new ship we have in the game. This is a size 3 multi-role ship. You'll get it once you're a decent way into the game, or rather you'll get access to it. I love this design. It was concepted out by Kruger. Milkman did all the modeling for it, and we just got it in game. I did some of the material work, and it's fun. You'll notice it is missing a missile pod there due to a weird little bug that I gotta fix, but this is a more triangular design, something that looks a little leaner, something that looks like it could do some combat, which is the idea behind multi-role ships, something that can do shipping and hauling, also combat, not necessarily an expert at either one, but a flexible ship. It will eventually have a size 2 turret in the central part of the ship on that mount. We just haven't built size 2 turrets quite yet. Let me put this one through a little bit of combat just to show you, even with 4 CWES as the primary weapon, it's plenty capable to deal with some of the smaller, peskier threats in the game. 4 missile pods, or rather 4 slots for missile pods, those will be swappable with different components as well. So if you like defense more, you might have some countermeasure pods on your ship or some other stuff in there that could expand your cargo hold. So ships are going to be pretty flexible in that regard, and the multi-role ships will be designed to take advantage of that flexibility. Also, you may notice that the explosions are a little bit more updated this time around. Will has done a second pass on them, experimenting with some Embergen generated sprites in there. We're going to be adding a lot more VFX to combat, especially when like CWIS hit, spaceships and stuff, a lot more smoke generation, I'm excited about pushing the VFX further. We got a ways to go on it, but I think each step is going to be exciting. Now, we've also begun designing modular stations. I realized we were going to need a flexible station design that we could kind of transform into a lot of different things quickly to facilitate a lot of different mission purposes. So I discussed the concept with Kruger. He started roughing out some really basic sketches. From those sketches, I began modeling out some white box concepts and throwing them into the engine so I could get the scale right, asking for a little bit of feedback. Do they feel too big, too small? Scaling them till I felt pretty happy with it, then sending that back to Kruger, him doing a more detailed sketch and then even further detailed sketches of each component. And then we have Milkman, who's taken over modeling some of them. And we don't have the high detailed models in game yet, but I am really excited about these. We're going to be able to do all kinds of things, like have them attached to asteroids. They could be floating in space. They could have a ton of vertical depth to them, or they could have a lot of horizontal depth. We're going to have cargo modules and all kinds of stuff that we can add onto them. And if the station ever feels like it's lacking some sort of component that it needs, we can always just design it and add it on. So love the concept of these. These are going to be really fun for mission destinations and stuff like that. Now, in this clip here, I've turned on a little debugger tool to show you where sound is being propagated in engine. And I already have some concurrency settings in there. Concurrency limits the number of sounds of a specific type in game. So if I have like 20 missiles fire off, it'll only play the sounds of 6 of those missiles. So it's not saturating the audio channels too much. That said, our audio channels were getting overloaded with the amount of sounds that have to propagate. Unreal has a limited number of audio channels that you can saturate, and frankly, you probably shouldn't be getting too close to this number anyway. It means you're not mixing your sounds down enough. And you can see when I'm in combat here, each CWiz impact is spawning an impact sound effect. If that impact sound effect had more reverberation and lasted longer, we would easily be exceeding the maximum number of channels on just a basic fight. So I did a whole bunch of audio, researched, watched videos, read all the documentation, and came to the conclusion, and let me know in the comments if you think this is the right way to go, because I am spending quite a bit of time on it, but basically, it will be mixing down sounds that propagate off of specific actors or in specific areas. So for example, before we were spawning a rocket engine sound, a thruster RCS sound, we were spawning the sounds for a cargo bay, airlocks. All of the weapons were being spawned as their own sound sources in game, but they're all coming from the spaceship. And what we can do is we can just spawn all of those sounds off of the same master graph, which is what this is here. Before, these would have been their own graphs. Actually, I can go into them and you can see how our rocket engine's graph is built. And if I go back to the master graph, it's just nested here in a nice little convenient package. And so instead of this sound being propagated on its own in the world, we're propagating it on the master ship graph, and it's all getting mixed down over here into one single output. So all of these sounds should only take up one audio channel in engine. It's a little more expensive to mix it down, but it might actually end up being cheaper in that we're not propagating as many sounds and having the engine mix it down. And in fact, CWiz impact here will get propagated and mixed down from the same channel. So instead of seeing tens and tens of CWiz impact sounds being spawned on screen at once, that will just be part of the ship master audio file, and it'll just be one audio source for just about everything that happens to or on the ship. We've got a bunch of logic that we got to rework to propagate the sounds, but I don't think integrating this to our current system is going to be too complicated. Now, in addition to all of that sound graph stuff, where there's also a lot of additional mixing logic that has to go on behind the scenes. I've made mixes for everything in the game. There's even submixes to submixes, and these submixes can be ducked depending on what's happening in the game world. So basically, say music right here, I want music to duck when somebody is speaking. So I've opened the music submix, and anything that plays music in the game will go to this submix, and then it'll go to the output channel. It's not really doing anything right now other than just categorizing it. but I've added a music compressor to it. And so if I open up this music compressor, you can see that it's lowering the volume of it significantly here, and it's got a ratio that is compressing it, and it's got attack time and release time. So it'll lower the volume, or rather compress the audio, and then bring it back up. And what's triggering that is an audio bus here. It gets complicated. It's all spaghetti. This audio bus is kind of nothing. It's just a mono audio channel. But what I've done is here we have the ship computer audio. So whenever the ship computer says something to the player, basically when a voiceover line plays, I have it not only send out to the basic submix as it does before, but it also writes to this audio bus, the audio bus voice. So here's our audio bus voice. The compressor is triggered off of the audio bus voice, and the compressor is affecting the entire music submix. So it will lower the volume of the music anytime a voice plays. That's the basic logic. It's all kind of spaghetti and you have to remember how it works, but pretty cool. You can automate kind of audio mixing in game. And I'm sure I'll be tweaking this system until the very final build of the game, but it's still pretty cool. And here's a little example of it playing some intro music while a VO line plays.
Beginning ship engine diagnostics.
It's very subtle, but that's kind of the point. You're not supposed to know that it's happening, and yet you'll still be able to hear everything you want to hear. Now, something that's been in the works for quite a while, and I talked to Mr. Meteor and asked if I could sneak it into this devlog since it's a little bit of an early preview, is our mining gameplay. This has been concepted out for quite a while. Approach an asteroid, lock onto it, scan it, see what's inside it, start mining it, and then begins the mining minigame. And the mining minigame is fairly complex in terms of the logic it needs to work. And so Mr. Meteor, who did all of our physics design for our spaceship flight, is working on the asteroid mining minigame, and he gave me a little preview of where he's at with it. Obviously the UI is placeholder and it's a circular timing minigame, so the colored notches on the side will represent pockets of ore in an asteroid, and if you pulse your mining laser when it's over the pocket, you will mine some of that resource. Now, some of the pockets are going to be smaller or more rare, harder to mine. We'll speed it up and tweak the difficulty of it, but the idea is that some of the easy stuff to mine should be fairly large pockets that are easy to grab, and the rare elements will be, one, less common to find on asteroids, and two, require better reaction times to mine the most of it. And if you miss, you could just mine rock and start filling up your cargo bay with rock while you're increasing the charge of the asteroid. Once you hit maximum charge level on the rock, it'll crack and your mining game will be over. Now, there's a lot more nuance to it and a lot more detail, but I'll save that for once we have this actually in-game and working. I just kind of wanted to show off where he was at with it because it's complicated, but also really cool. So as you guys can see, we've been busy. We did not have Rich with us for a couple of weeks because he was quite sick, but he is on the mend right now and hopefully able to get back in engine and start making progress on a lot of other cool systems that we're working on. Really looking forward to making some progress in some of our weapons and stuff that's coming up in our pipeline in the near future, and also orchestrating some of our world building logic to help us procedurally generate certain missions and stuff like that. That's going to be really exciting, but that'll have to wait for a future devlog. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Once again, if you want to check out the game on Steam, there's a link in the description to wishlist it. Check out our Discord as well, and if you want to look at some of the other devlogs or the game trailer, those are linked right here. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.